Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Mortgage Coach. Welcome to our Tuesday call. Every single Tuesday, I am interviewing someone amazing. Sometimes it's a top-performing mortgage professional, like last week with Jeremy Forcier. And today, we are interviewing Anthony. And Anthony, as many times as I've interviewed you, I still have a hard time with your last name. Help me say it, brother.
Iannarino, just drop the I.
Iannarino. So, bro, it is such an honor to have you back. As I was preparing for today's call, look at that. Look how many times you've been in the Mortgage Coach house.
No way.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I can't even believe that. That is so many times.
Yeah, we talked about your sales technique matters. That was awesome. I did a full-on wow selling interview with you. We talked about change. Notice that the art and science of getting the big meeting, has been watched the most. But we've created a lot of great content together, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Well, thank you for having me back on. I would have said 3 times, not 6 times.
I think I would have said 3 or 4, but yeah. I was surprised, and I've got a lot of good feedback from our audience. Last week I interviewed Jeremy Forcier. So Anthony, in our world, Jeremy is, he is the 1%er of the 1%ers. Not only is this guy doing just amount of monster sales production as a team leader, he's also building a big region. In our market, he's doing think about 150 in personal production or 140, and then 1.5 billion in the team that he's built. So he's just leading and he's producing. For everyone who missed that call, really recommend you listen to it. The recording is in our YouTube page. A couple of the takeaways were, when I asked them, what are you all about from a mortgage leader's perspective? If there was one sentence you could say that really sums up what you do and why you do it, and this is what he said, just, good people deserve good advice, and that guides everything I do. I don't know, Anthony, I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of folks, but when you think about the why, how important is that, for salespeople to just have a really clear, clean, and, service-oriented why?
It's so interesting because if you get your focus off of yourself and you get rid of the self-orientation that I need a deal, I, and then you read a quote like this, good people deserve good advice. So what does Jeremy think he's doing? He's helping people. He's caring about people. He's trying to make a difference for people. And when you do that, everything clears away and it gets super easy. I'm not surprised to see a quote by like that from a top producer because that's one of the reasons he's a top producer.
Yep. The other takeaway I wanted to shine a light on as we debrief is when I asked Jeremy, what are the critical few things that you do and you make sure you do every day, every week of every month of every year. And these were his critical few, prospect 20 hours weekly, had it time blocked, described all the accountability he's built into that. When I deliver a presentation of value, it's a Mortgage Coach total cost analysis. And then, within the mortgage, there's a lot of celebrations. There's a celebration when your loan gets approved. There's a celebration when you close your loan and you have your home. But there's also other celebrations. He's like, I make sure, well, I have a team, I'm part of every celebration. He's like, I just do these 3 things and everything takes care of itself. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, Anthony, and how important it is to have a critical few? 2
big thoughts there. The first one, I can't tell you how transformational it is to put prospecting first. That if you just did that, if you hung up on this call right now and left today and you just did that, you're going to massively improve your results. And I'm not surprised to see, I'm surprised to see by 20 hours, that's a lot of hours. That means literally half a day for a normal work week. He's probably working 60. So a third of his week dedicated to opportunity creation. That will solve so many of your problems. The second thing, the Mortgage Coach total cost analysis, I think that sales success is 3 things. It's mindset, skill set. We're going to talk about those. But it's also a toolkit. Do you have the tools to be able to convey this value to other people? And we look at sales organizations and they might have an incredible mindset and incredible skill set, but still not get the results they should be able to get because they don't have the tools. That's a critical component in the digital age. You need to have the tools that serve you now. So it's mindset, skill set, toolkit. He's got all three. And you look at the mindset, so he's got the discipline skill of prospecting, he's got the toolkit, and then he's got be part of the celebrations, which is the mindset. So he's an abundance guy. He believes he's caring and he's serving other people, and there you go. It's a great recipe.
Yeah, right. So first of all, if you didn't listen to that call, put it on the list. I was also, when I prepared for this, I went in and I said, hey, how many times did I interview Anthony? I wanted to just look at that, think about some of those past calls we've done, and then I also ran a report to say, hey, what's the most watched, what are the top 10 most watched calls in the Mortgage Coach YouTube page? And this one came up as number one. And, by the way, Jeremy was on that call. But this year, this call has been our most watched call. So, folks, if you missed this call, super powerful call. When I think about Jeremy, and I just wanted to finish the debrief, this is just, I think it's like 4 minutes long, and it's the questions that Jeremy asks every single realtor. When he meets with a new realtor, he's got his 5 questions that he asks. 5 minutes, super powerful. So, that kind of concludes my thoughts on Jeremy's call. I think we're 6 minutes into our time, Anthony, so I'm ready to get rolling, unless there's something else you want to talk about as it pertains to Jeremy.
No, it looks like the guy's a killer, though.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. So folks, on today's call, we're going to talk about what makes you a trusted advisor. There's a lot of loan officers in the country that say they're a trusted advisor. Maybe you think you are, but are you really executing on that on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis? I was at Sales Mastery last week. For all you that are on the call that were, I got to spend time with at Sales Mastery. To me, my biggest takeaway was reflecting on, I think there was about 28 speakers. I didn't get to watch all of them because I was in my suite having a lot of meetings, but I did watch a number of them. And then I did ask everybody that I ran into, and if you were at that event, I probably asked you, hey, what was your biggest takeaway? And, what are you going to do differently next week coming out of this event? And the common theme was it all had to do with, everybody on stage was a trusted advisor. They were not a loan officer. And when I listened to all the takeaways, it all had to do with being a better trusted advisor. So Anthony, I think you are a pretty amazing guy. It's a gift that you're in our industry. If you wouldn't, for folks who haven't heard the interview with you, just tell us a little bit about your book, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, and then I'll hand off the screen and you can walk us through some thoughts.
The book is the only sales guide you'll ever need. Just the quick backstory on that is I've been writing every day for years, and I had a publisher reach out and say, we want you to write a book. And I said, okay. And they said, do you have something in mind? And I said, yes. So I wrote a table of contents and some content for them, and I shared it with them. And they said, we don't like it. We don't like it at all. We don't even understand what you're saying. You've got all these things that have nothing to do with sales in a sales book, like discipline and resourcefulness and initiative and all these kinds of things. What does that have to do with selling? And I was patient and tolerant, and I said, have you ever sold or have you ever led or managed a sales team? And the book publisher said, no, I haven't. And I said, well, I've never published a book, so you're going to have to trust me that I know my part, you have to know your part. And he said, why don't we just cut the first half of the book, we'll roll up some blog posts, and we'll make it a book out of the second half of the book. And I said, that's not the book that I want to deliver. So we parted ways. And eventually I decided I'll just write the book and publish it myself because the publishers don't have a great value prop anyway. And I went down that path to the point where I was 6 weeks away from printing this book, and I got a direct message tweet from Portfolio who said, you're one of the biggest sales influencers in the world. You're at the top of everybody's list. We don't understand why you haven't written a book. And I said, well, I have written a book, and I'm self-publishing 6 weeks from now. And they said, can we talk to you? And I said, sure. And then they proceeded to tell me all the things that were wrong with my book, like the title and a whole bunch of other things. So finally I said, listen, you have a lot of strong feelings. Why don't you just read the book, tell me what you want me to change, and maybe we'll talk again in the future. Well, they read the book, and they immediately understood what I did with the book, with a mindset and a skill set, which we'll talk about. And they said, we want to publish this book, and we want to publish the second book that you talked about, and we want an option on the third book. So all of that came out of resisting doing the easy thing and giving somebody what they want and doing what I know is right. So this book is a book that if you want to be a trusted advisor, this is the book that will help you become that. And if you're an experienced salesperson, this will remind you of things and probably add some new things to what you do. And if you're relatively new to selling, this is going to be a book that you probably keep with you because it's so actionable. And what I do is I'm a speaker, I'm a writer, and I'm a coach and a consultant. So those are my day jobs. But the book is really a recipe for being a trusted advisor. And Dave, I'll just tell you what I tease sales organizations with when I speak is that you only need two things to be a trusted advisor. Do you know what they are?
I'm going to let you tell everybody what they are. I'm not going to
trust and advice. You just need those two things. You need trust and advice. So it's not one half or the other. It's not known, liked, and trusted by itself. You also have to have the ability to create value for people. And if you can get those two pieces together, you can embody what it takes to be a trusted advisor. But my framework's a little bit more complicated, but we'll walk through a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, I'm looking forward to going through the framework. If you could, I know you've had a lot of success with this book. It's trending, I think would be the right way to say it. If you could just share, some of the success you've had with the book, and then let's get into your framework.
So the book is #1 and #2 in hot new sales and selling on Amazon right now. And it is #4 in sales in hardcover right now, #1 in Kindle. It's #5 on Barnes & Noble in all books. So I'm right behind Bruce Springsteen and our buddy Grant Cardone. So I'm closing the gap on those. But I do think it's going to make #1, and it's been very successful. And I just found out on the way here that the audiobook has been released. So if you're not the kind of person that wants to read a book, I'll read it to you for 6 hours, which was one of the most painful experiences I've ever had, reading your own book out loud over 11 hours.
I love it. So Mortgage Coach community, Anthony is one of the most successful authors in the country today. The 6 times I interviewed him prior, he was a mentor to me. So this is someone, I've read his blog for years. I've got a tremendous amount of value indirectly from our relationship, and then obviously I've brought him into the Mortgage Coach house 6 times. So I'm looking forward to #7. And everybody on this call, you've got one of the best authors in America, not just sales leaders, but top authors. So Anthony, walk us through your framework, help us understand what being a trusted advisor looks like, and we'll have a conversation around it.
Awesome. And I'm going to limit this conversation. You're going to hand me the screen? Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. All right, you got the screen now. So let me just walk you through a couple ideas. I started our conversation by talking about mindset and skill set, and this is the part that confused the first publisher. They wanted to know, why is mindset in here? Because they hadn't seen any books where mindset was covered. But what my experience taught me was that some salespeople were struggling, and when you would ask their manager about them, they would say, not a closer, doesn't have a killer instinct, or all these other things that they would say. And then I would look at that individual and say, that's not it. In fact, they have no self-discipline and they're not resourceful. And they would say, how did you come up with that? But that's what I come up with, and I would be able to see the mindset part of it. It's not that they don't know how to close. It's that they're not doing enough work. They're not being disciplined. Like Jeremy, who's doing 20 hours of prospecting a week. I mean, you're going to succeed if you do 20 hours of prospecting a week. It'd be almost impossible for you not to. But these beliefs and behaviors tend to be the driver. So I think that it goes this way. If you have the right mindset and we bolt on the skill sets, that's the right recipe. If you just have the skill sets but you don't have the mindsets, then you can struggle. So basically I broke this book down into these 2 sections, and I tried to eliminate anything that I could combine so that I could make it the fewest number of elements necessary, but everything here is necessary. So it starts with discipline. It includes optimism. You have to have an abundance mindset. You have to believe that there's plenty of opportunities out there. You have to believe that the next call you make is the call that's going to allow you to win. And you have to care deeply. So what did Jeremy say? He's caring. And when you look at that and you say, what does that do? It gets rid of the self-orientation. It means you're other-oriented. Being other-oriented means creating value for others. That makes it easy to win. You have to be competitive. In what we do, it's a zero-sum game. So in your world, somebody gets the loan and somebody else doesn't get the loan. I believe that there's plenty of loans to go around because I'm an abundance guy, but I have to know that I'm competing, and so I have to be the very best version of myself in every interaction. I have to create the most value. and I have to create the greatest preference for me and for my solution and for my company, and that's what it means to be a competitor. You have to be resourceful, which means you need to find new ways to do things and solve problems. You can't wait. You've got to be proactive, which means you take initiative. You have to persist, probably longer and harder than you think you might, but it's part of the recipe for the mindset. And you have to have great communication skills, which in the book is mostly about listening better. And then the one thing that will differentiate you and define you that we'll talk about is accountability. You have to be accountable for a bigger result. So this covers who you are, and who you are comes before what you do. And this is where we get mixed up in sales and in business. We think we need to do this and we need to do that and we need to do this other thing. Okay, that's fine. Those are all good things. But you also have to be somebody that's worth doing business with in the first place. And if you get the be right, then the do gets a lot easier. Once you get through that piece, then you can start looking at what does it take to sell effectively today. You need to know how to ask for and gain commitment. So you need to know how to close. Everything that you read right now in sales says just wait for the customer to tell you they're ready to take the next step. And that is malpractice and criminal negligence. You've got to control the sales process because you know best how to help people. You've got to prospect. You've got to be able to tell a good story, which means present. You've got to be able to look deeply at what people really need. This diagnosis is more than just a presenting problem. It's what's the root cause I got to get to. You've got to negotiate win-win deals, and that means you've got to know how to justify the delta between your price and your competitors. And then here are the big three. Business acumen, which you're going to get with the Mortgage Coach offerings. That's going to help you have business acumen. You've got to be able to help people change, and you've got to be a leader. So we don't have time in this call to go through all 17 elements, but maybe we can go through 6 in a way that I can make those 6 meaningful for you. And the 6 that I want to focus on are what I would say is the starting point for the recipe of how do you become a trusted advisor. And I'm going to skip discipline and optimism, and I'm going to go to caring. The more other-oriented you are, the greater ease you'll have in creating value for other people. And what happens for most of us is we've got a quota, and so we're hungry, and we're hunting, and we're saying, I need this, I need that. And then when we sit down in front of the customer, we're saying, we can do this, and we can do that, and we can do this, and we can do that, and let me tell you about how we can do this. But really the conversation needs to shift, and you need to say, what is it that I can do to help you? What's the most important factor for you here? How do I help you get the outcomes that you need? Do you have a vision of what that looks like? And when you start focusing on the other person and you let them talk and you open up that space for them, you're creating a connection. And my friend Charlie Green wrote the book Trusted Advisor with David Maister. And so when you say trusted advisor, I think you have to send Charlie $1 just for using the words, because I think they own the trademark on trusted advisor. But what his recipe is, what he discovered is that your credibility times your reliability times your intimacy divided by your self-orientation, so how selfish your motives are. And what is interesting about that is reliability is good, credibility is good, but the biggest driver of those 3 is intimacy. Do you know me? Do you understand me? Are you part of my team? Do you get me? Do you care about me? That's what really drives this. So if you want to be a trusted advisor, you got to pick up Jeremy's mindset. I mean, and that's what was interesting to me about that slide, Dave, is that you see that in the words that he uses to talk about his mission and what he's trying to do. If you change that focus and you shift it, then you automatically create the kind of intimacy that builds trust, and when you have trust, that creates a preference. Resourcefulness is the second one of the mindset attributes that I would point you towards. You have to come up with a better solution. And you have a lot of solutions that look like your competitor's solution. You've got a lot of things that you have to do that will make you a preferred provider, and that's mostly going to be resourcefulness. What can you do different? So as a loan officer, as somebody who's trying to acquire loans, what is going to make me as a real estate agent with a big book of business choose you over everybody else? This is where you need ideas. This is where you need to generate new things that you can do, new ways to create value, whether it's greater intimacy, that you have closer relationships, whether it's teaching people about the market, whether it's creating a referral network. Any of these things that you can think of that are going to give you an advantage will help you. And you have to remember, This is a pretty easy game to play. Most people are doing what they do every single day. It's the people who stop long enough to think about what they're doing and say, let me see what I could do to shift this, to come up with the next idea for my client. How do I help that real estate agent so that I'm preferred and I get their loans? That's the way that you have to think about this if you want to be a trusted advisor. And here's where we make a mistake and get stale. We don't go from quarter to quarter to quarter creating value. We win an account, we develop a relationship, and then we got the status quo. Then we get complacent and we get a little bit neglectful, and that's when you start to have loans go to other people. And I tell you this because your job is to sit down with a group of smart people and say, next quarter, what am I going to do different? Next quarter, what am I going to do different? How do I continue to move the bar so that I'm the preferred person because I'm always coming up with that next idea instead of just letting the status quo take hold? That's what you do if you want to be a trusted advisor. And the last thing I'm going to go to is accountability. In your world, I'm going to imagine that one of the things that you're going to measure is your timeliness. That's probably a big deal to real estate agents. How timely are you? Do you keep those commitments? And that's really good because you're accountable for that. What I would tell you to do to stretch this, to become a trusted advisor, is what more can you be accountable for? Other than just being efficient, can you be accountable for knowing market conditions better than anybody else? Can you be accountable for helping hard-to-finance clients get the money they need for a home? You have to start thinking through this lens of, am I just a vendor or am I a trusted advisor? And what would a trusted advisor be accountable for? A trusted advisor would be accountable for, you're helping me think about my business in a way that's going to make both of us more money and make both of us more successful. So if you just stop at what you do now and that's all you're accountable for, you're probably still going to do pretty well. But if you want to move up a notch and say, I'm taking this thing to the next level, you're first going to have to commit to being accountable for things that other people are trying to avoid being accountable for. They want to avoid being accountable for the next idea. They want to avoid being accountable for dealing with difficult clients and all of these things that you could easily say, I can do that and I can be accountable for helping you get these results. Dave, I'm going to pause here in case you want to pop in.
Well, couple things. So folks, questions have been coming in. One, we're going to make Anthony's slides available as a PDF. So for those of you that have asked for his slides, they will be available in the handout section. Also, I've already seen a few folks say that they've bought your book. We did put a link in chat to buy your book. So no, I mean, I'll say most of my debrief thoughts in a minute here.
Sure.
The last thing I would say is everyone, we're going to be able to ask Anthony questions. So of all the things that he's talked about, if there's something you want to drill down on, post that in the GoToWebinar control panel, and I will bring your questions into this conversation. And if you want to raise your hand, we'll see if we have time, and I'll try to unmic a few folks or unmute a few folks and bring you into the conversation. So get ready for some dialogue, and this is awesome. Keep it going, brother.
If anybody goes out and buys the book today, though, I had a pre-order where if you bought the book before it came out, I would send you this custom PDF workbook. And the workbook allows you to type all your answers into the PDF because I hate printing them out and writing on them. I like to type the answers in and then print it out to carry with me. But if you buy it today and you email me your receipt, I'll send you the workbook and I'll send you 2 spreadsheets, one to score yourself on each attribute and one to score your team. So Dave, I'll type in a minute, I'll type something in the box for an email address to send me. If you do go out and buy it today, I'll honor that and I'll send you the workbooks, which people are already raving over. So
yeah, no
I'll make
problem.
sure you get those.
Let's do that. And Marcy, if you could be ready to take some notes and post that for everyone, we will, by the end of the call, give you a special offer for anyone that buys his book today. But yeah, let's keep it rolling.
Closing's important, prospecting's important, storytelling's important, diagnosing, negotiating, all important. I want to get to the 3 big ones for you. The 3 big ones are business acumen. If you have information parity with the real estate agents that you're working with, if you know as much as they know, very difficult to be a trusted advisor. Because I said at the beginning of this, what's interesting, to be a trusted advisor, you need 2 things, trust and advice. This is the part where you have the advice. This is the part where you say, I know things that you don't know. That's what makes you valuable to your customers. is that you know something that they don't know. You know how to help them in a way that they don't already know. So your job is to get smarter and make sure that there's never information parity with you and your client. So Dave, I know you went out and started listening to my podcast, and you listened to the Challenger Sale guys. So Matt and Brent wrote a book about having insight. And the reason that you need to have insight is because that's the thing that you can go and teach that's going to create value. And as long as you keep pace with this, so you're studying market conditions in your area, you're studying number of homes owned, homes sold, things that you know that when you sit down, you're not a loan officer, you're a consultant. That's what's going to do this for you, is how much do you know that I don't know? Because that gap between us, that's the advice part of the trusted advisor. If you don't have that, then you end up being somebody that I can have a vendor relationship with, but that I can't have a trusted advisor relationship with because you're missing the advice part. And everybody here, if you're listening to these calls, you're doing that. You're listening because you want a competitive advantage. You want to know things that you don't already know. But there might be people on your team who think, well, I know enough to do my job. I've been doing this for 30 years. And Kay Anders Erickson, who's the expert on experts, and he's the guy who invented the 10,000-hour rule that Malcolm Gladwell cites, has this funny quote that he says, I've been walking for 50 years, but I'm not getting any better at it. And we can do the same thing for years and years without getting better. This business acumen's a big deal. So you've got to study really hard to make sure that you're up to date with the best thinking, the best mindset, the best skill set, and the best toolkits. The next one is change management. If you can help people change, if you can help them make better decisions than they're making, this is where you become a trusted advisor. And it's an interesting thing. I write a blog post every day, and the one that I've written today but haven't posted tonight is about how when we think as salespeople, we think our competitor's terrible, that's why the client's dissatisfied, they aren't doing a good job, I can do a better job. But really, a lot of times your competitor's really good. It's the customer that's not great. It's that they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and they're unreasonable and unwilling to change. When you can have those kind of conversations and say, listen, if we could change your process to do this instead of what you're doing, we could get you a better result. If you can have those conversations, that immediately elevates you up into the status of trusted advisor. You're the change agent. You're the catalyst, the instigator for saying there's a better way, there's better results available to you, and I can show you how to make that change. This is helping somebody else, though, with their mindset and their skill sets. And the last one is leadership. And leadership is critical. It's the second half of accountability. So the mindset is accountability, but the skill set is leadership. And if you're a loan officer and you're not the leader of the organization, I would tell you, you need to be the leader. And you need to be the leader in yourself and in what you do with the people that you work with, because it's not a title. It has nothing to do with an org chart. It has nothing to do with your business card. Leadership is this idea where I'm going to take responsibility for generating some result. And if you take responsibility for generating that result, what I think you're going to find, if you haven't experienced this already, is that when you say, hey, I'll handle this tough problem, I'll deal with it, I'll lead, I'll get our team together, I'll get with the client, I'll do these things, everybody clears out of your way. They're like, oh, this person's going to be the leader? Great, they're the leader. But nobody's going to come along and tap you on the shoulder and say, guess what? Now you're a leader. Congratulations. There are a lot of people who have the title leader that aren't really leaders. The people who are leaders just lead. They lead automatically, which means you find out what needs to be done, and you do it, and you make sure it gets done within your organization and with the clients you serve. So this would be my recipe. So when you look all the way back at the beginning of this for mindset and skill set, there's a bunch of attributes for each one of them. I would tell you to occupy the space of trusted advisor. Focus first on caring, resourcefulness, and accountability. If you get that mindset that I care about you, I can come up with the ideas, and I will be here standing beside you in the foxhole making sure you get this done, that's the right mindset. And then for the skill set, what do I know about business? How do I help you change? And I can lead that change for and with you. That's the recipe for a trusted advisor. Dave, I'm passing it back to you.
I know, I didn't, I had it on mute. So obviously a fantastic review of what it takes to be a trusted advisor. When I think of all the interviews that I've done of top mortgage professionals, And not only were they super successful from the number of loans that they close, but when I think also they're great with how they use Mortgage Coach. That business acumen just always stands out. And that interview that I did a couple weeks ago with Paul Sheshirba, a top loan officer, he was a millennial. So this guy's super young, he's under 30, and he's killing it. He's already on his way to being a top 1%er. He's already in the top, I don't know if he's top 5%, top 10%, but a top producer at all levels. And he's so close to being the best of the best. And I would just ask him simple questions, tell us about how you helped this customer. And you would hear him tell a story. And within the way he would tell the story, it was clear that he asked them what their goals were. It was clear that he understood how to take their goals and shape that into a strategy. And then it was clear that he understood how to storytell. And so I guess I'd love to talk a little bit about this concept of business acumen drives story selling. Because, when I think of all the loan officers I've interviewed, let's just say they're surviving, maybe they're even doing pretty well, but they want to go to the next level. And obviously, we're here in Mortgage Coach land. We want to help people do that with our product. And at the end of the day, our product is great, but if the loan officer doesn't ask the right questions, doesn't have the business acumen to prescribe the loan strategies, and then take that business acumen and storytell, it's a good tool, but it's not a life-changing tool. So I don't know, where should we start there, Anthony? I mean, in that area.
Well, I think, let me try to tie that together from my view. I think if you have the business acumen, then you conceptually understand what to tell a story about. And so I know things, I know how to talk about them, but you have to know things first. So the storytelling structure that I tend to recommend for people is, I think that business acumen means we do this diagnosis, right? And we listen to what people have to say. And then we say, here's their current state. Okay, so I understand where they are and what they want. And then the second part of the story is, what's the future? What's the future state that they need? I need faster turnaround time. I need somebody to be totally accountable with communicating with the client. I need these things. How do we get to that state? The business acumen fills in the gap between those, which is how do we do that together, and what are the dragons? There's a dragon here, because what are the challenges that you face along this way? So when you have the business acumen, you can say, listen, I can get you faster turnaround time, and I can maybe process this faster for you. But here's what I need from you in order to be able to do that. So I'm going to need to be involved earlier. I'm going to need to have direct communication with your client. I'm going to need them to come in. I'm going to need this piece of paperwork filled out if we're going to do it this way. And I need to be able to explain to you, I can get you from the current state to the future state, but here's all the business things that have to happen in between and why. And I think the mistake we make as storytellers is we don't tell people about how we learned these lessons. And the interesting part of a story is when you go see a movie, if the movie went boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy marries girl, boy and girl live happily ever after, that's a terrible movie because nothing happened. There's absolutely zero conflict in it. But in business, there's a lot of friction. And the reason that people can't get what they want is because it's difficult. So we have to be able to tell them, boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, boy loses girl, girl hates boy, boy has to do some terrible work to find out a way to recover, boy eventually wins girl back, right? That's the real life story for business. It's not smooth from one end of the bridge to the other. In the middle of the bridge is this big fire-breathing dragon that's going to burn your face off. And that's the part we have to tell them, look, it has to be done this way because when you do it this way, you'll get this outcome. And when you do it this other way, you'll even get a worse outcome. So if we need to do this, this is the one way that's going to get you your absolute best results. And let me help you understand why. So this is the part about storytelling. You need to be able to talk about, I'll give you an example from a business I own. I own staffing businesses. It's one of the types of business that I own, a number of business. And that I own them in that category. And right now there's a manpower shortage. And people think, they have two things that they think. They think labor is cheap and labor is abundant because we had a recession. Both of those things are no longer true. So the story I have to tell is, I know you believe that labor is cheap and that it's relatively inexpensive, but let me show you that economists say that labor markets are fully employed at 5%, and the market that you're in, the unemployment rate is 3.8%. So that's less than 0. 5 is 0, you're at 3.8, so you're less than 0. Let me show you what people pay for the same job in your area. You think that you can pay $18 an hour. That's now $26 in this area, so you're never going to get your people because you've fallen behind in this area. That's the business acumen. I'm relying on what I know. I know a lot. And in addition to knowing a lot, I've got a lot of facts and proof providers that I can show to help them understand the story that we tell. But that's what the best salespeople can do. They can take the business acumen and apply it to the story.
Love it. Hey, you brought up another point that I want to drill down on. In preparation for our call today, I went through your podcast, and I actually listened to 2 of them early this morning. The first one was the one you did with the Challenger sales guys. And for anyone who's listened to me, for, I don't know, at least 4 to 5 years, I've talked a lot about the Challenger sale. I do think it's an important book. I mean, I think there's parts of it you got to take and you got to love, but I mean, I do think it's one of the more important sales books written over the past 10 years. You did that interview, and within that book, they talked about, they call it constructive tension. I call it leadership. I noticed that in your slide you put leadership, but I know when I interview the best of the best, they are leaders. They're confident. They challenge people. They live in a world of constructive tension, and often, with their customers, and often when I interview folks that are, they're either on their way up or they've hit some ceilings, they're not bringing enough tension to their client relationships. They're people pleasers. They're generous with their time to a point where they don't actually execute on their own mission. Let's talk about that a little bit, and what I would like to come out of the discussion with advice for folks to raise their own game. So where would you like to take that? But I would love to just touch on that within this call.
I'm going to have to ask permission to use bad words. Is that okay? Just one and not the worst word you've ever heard.
Go for it.
Okay, you don't have to be an asshole. You can be challenging without being difficult to do business with. And this is something that when Challenger came out, a lot of people thought that meant I have to be really, really frank and brutal. There's a right way to talk about difficult subjects, and there's a wrong way. And so if you come in and you're like, you know what, I'm a challenger, I'm just going to go ahead and punch him right in the face, you're not going to be greeted in the way that you need to be greeted. And I talk to salespeople all the time in big groups, and I say, you want people to put their hands down. You want to get the resistance out of it because you already have friction, okay? You don't need to make friction worse. You need to try to reduce the friction. So there's a nice way to talk about it. So when you're challenging people, and you have to challenge people, if you're not challenging what they believe, you're not doing the change management part of this, and you're not leading, because that's the part, if you want to be a trusted advisor, and I've written this a number of times, everybody says they want to be a trusted advisor, but nobody wants to go and get really real and say, Dave, can I share something with you? Those are my favorite words to say, because it means that you have to put your hands down and stop resisting me enough for me to share something with you. If you take 2 things away, take the prospecting piece from Jeremy and take this, can I share something with you? That doesn't sound like I'm going to threaten you at all. And then I'm going to say, you know what, I've looked at what you're doing, and I've looked at market conditions, and I have a few ideas that I think you're going to run in trouble with what you're doing right now because of these market conditions. But there are some things you could do. Could I share with you what I see, and then 3 or 4 ideas about what you might do about it to get a better result? I'm serving, I'm caring, I'm polite, but I am going to challenge what you think. And you have to be able to do that. And I will tell you, the mistake that salespeople make is they think I need to be liked. And you're not going to be liked if you're the kind of person that comes in and doesn't offer anything. You're not going to create a preference for you if you know nothing and you're not willing to push the client to be better. They want somebody who's going to be their partner in growth. And if you can't be their partner in growth because you can't challenge them and you can't lead on that issue, then you're always going to struggle to be a trusted advisor. And I'm going to go to the far continuum, and I know nobody on this call is in this bucket because people who are in this bucket don't show up on this call. When the Challenger guys wrote the book, they published a blog post on Harvard Business Review called Relationship Selling is Dead. And nothing could be further from the truth. But what they were basically saying was that if all it is I like you and you're a nice person, you're not going to do well. when you ask them, and I did because I interviewed them in front of their customers shortly after we recorded that podcast because they wanted somebody to challenge them, they said actually challengers have the second highest score in relationship building. But I think what they really meant was order takers. An order taker is, you tell me what you want, boss, and I'll do it. You're the boss, you're the client, I'll do whatever you say. That just makes you an order taker. It's not going to make you a trusted advisor because I know when I come to you, you're not going to have anything to offer except I don't want to have any conflicts, so you just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. The best salespeople know how to engage in that conflict, and they know how to use it constructively. Constructive conflict in business is how we get better. And so you need some friction, and if you don't have any friction, you need to go make some friction.
Love it. Love it. So, I mean, I think you nailed that. I loved your scripting. And by the way, Anthony, are you done with the slides? Because I've been making some notes, and I would love to share a few things as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I grab it back?
Not at all.
All right. So let's go back, and let's use my desktop as though it's a chalkboard. And remember, folks, we've still got 20 minutes left, although Anthony and I will wrap it up sooner if you're not driving us with questions. But, you know, Dave, can I share something with you? So by the way, that was a great tactic to help someone who's on this call. So let's just say on a scale of 1 to 10. And by the way, 10 is not, as you put it, asshole. 10 is the top of being constructive. And let's face it, we all know someone that really pushes that envelope. And every once in a while, they kind of push it over the edge, and they do kind of push it over the edge and go unconstructive. But because they're doing it, they're super successful. Let's almost speak to the folks that are at a 5, because I do think everybody on this call, they're a 5. But I don't believe everybody on this call is a 7 and 8. And I don't even know that everybody has the disposition to be a 10 in constructive tension. One person, you know, when we were telling about your book, one person asked, does it have scripts in your book? Now, by the way,
it does have some language choices in the book.
By the way, did you hear that? Language choices, talking points. Let's talk about some other language choices to help people tactically go into advisor mode. And let's face it, on this call, we have some of the most successful loan officers on the planet. So if you are a challenger sales rep and you want to throw in some language choices, talking points, share that in chat, and I'll bring it into the conversation. But Anthony, does anything else come to mind to help people go from a 5 to a 10 in the area of construction tension and leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of ways to do it. So I don't know what your personality is, and the personality kind of matters because you can do it in really, really funny ways and subtle ways that pop a lot of tension. So you can even start out by saying, Dave, listen, what I'm going to show you is going to hurt you a lot, and I apologize. It's going to feel like somebody hit you in the head with a stick. But I promise what I show you after that, you're going to say, I can absolutely do this. I totally get where you're coming from. If that's your personality and you can say that without any fear and without feeling anything about it, that's a great way to do it. I'll share another way, a more subtle way. I had a client who I was with in France, and he said, I hate my sales team. They suck at closing. They're terrible negotiators. I'm going to fire all of them and start over again with a new group. Now he's talking about firing 150 people. And I'm listening to this, and I said, I understand, and I accept your assessment of your sales team. They suck at closing. They're terrible negotiators. But what are we going to do when we get the third group? And he said, I don't understand what you're saying. And I said, when we hire the third group, what do we do? And he said, I'm not following you. Now we have tension. He's like, what are you trying to tell me? And I said, when we fire the first group and we hire the second group and we treat the second group just like we're treating the first group and we fire them, what are we going to do different when we get to the third group? And he said, are you saying that this is my fault? And I said, well, not yours alone. It's also the rest of your sales management team. And I smiled at him. And he goes, all right, what do I need to do? You know, and that was another way that was a way for me to do it in my personality. I can own those words, and I had the kind of rapport where I could have that conversation. So those are the kinds of things that you can do, but there's lots of choices for you. And I'm glad that you like this because when I sold the first book to the publisher, I pitched them the second book in that first conversation we had. And the second book is about transformational conversations, particularly around commitment gaining. So we're going to have a book that's got 20 chapters, and 10 of them are just 10 different commitment types that you need, all with all the language choices you have around saying things like this. But here's what my experience tells me. People who get stuck are afraid of changing, and they typically fear the wrong danger. So what I mean by that is they think that if they change, they're risking something, but not changing is the real risk. So some of the people that you call on are doing things the way that they've done them for a long time. I mean, you're on this call, so you're in the Mortgage Coach family. Some of people you know are not using the tool that Dave provides. They know that the tool exists. They know they would be better with it. They know the top performers are using it. They just are afraid, well, I'm not sure how to use it, and what if it goes wrong, and I don't want to. I'm more comfortable doing what I've always done. All those things are true, but that's true for your client too. They don't want to change. So you have to be able to help them fear the right danger. So what's the right danger? By not making these changes, you're never going to get the results that you really want. And what are those changes? And those are what I call transformational conversations. If you want to challenge people, you have to help them transform, and you have to show them that route forward. And there's lots of language. There's language in the book. There's tons of language on the blog. And you're going to get another book in about 10 months with even more language.
So by the way, you said something else. They're having transformational conversations. So I love everyone on this call right now, if you've got a pen and paper in your hand, I just want you to write down on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're having transformational conversations. And I can assure you, Jeremy Forcier is having transformational conversations. And, you know, all of the top producer I interview, you know, this is Danny Harani, you know, again, a peer of Jeremy's, one of the absolute top mortgage professionals in the country. He is having transformational conversations. This is Kelly Zitlow out of Scottsdale, Arizona, sitting down with the family, consulting with them. She's having transformational conversations. So where are you at right now in the area of transformational conversations? And then I want you to also score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Are you a leader? You know, are you bringing the appropriate leadership? Are you having constructive tension? This is Wally Elderberry out of Dallas having a conversation with a family. And I can assure you, because he's done it with me, where he's brought leadership. You know, he always asks me, what can I do better? So you can just tell there's this guy that's just never ending. I want to do better, I want to do better, I want to do better. And if he doesn't understand something, he's challenging me. If I'm not flowing right, he's challenging me. It's just the way leaders roll. So I want everybody to score yourself. Now, Anthony, I'm going to bring you in with a couple fastballs in just a minute, but we're getting so many questions about your book, and we're getting so many questions about how to get the special offer. If you could, I'm going to share your book real quick, a few things. If you could be typing in to chat the email, just so we can kind of take that off.
Sure, let's do that.
And let people focus. Type that into chat. So guys, in chat, within minutes, Anthony will have posted a link or his email, and I'll get that to all of you. I did post it in chat, but a few people are saying they're not seeing it. I do think it's something on your end. But remember, there's also Google. You could Google Anthony's name and Google his name and put book, and you'll get to it. So buy it on Amazon. Also, a number of folks have asked about his podcast because we just brought it up in the dialogue. You know, you could Google it. Recommend is you just start following Anthony. You know, go to thesalesblog.com. I did put a link in chat for that, and I start following this guy. I mean, you want to know where his podcast is? Boom, Anthony lets you know where his podcast is.
You want to share the screen with me, and I'll put my my chat only goes to you, but I will.
No, I got the chat. I'll get it out, Anthony.
Okay, cool.
You want to hire, if you're a leader and you manage a team, or you know you guys do sales rallies, you want to hire him to speak, boom. By the way, not only is Anthony's blog awesome, and I've been studying it for, you know, I don't know how long, forever, but his podcast. So there's just a lot of content that is just super rich, super powerful for anyone that wants to be the best salesperson they could be. So there you have it. Anthony, anything else you want to say on that? But
No,
by the way, we already posted your email in chat for everybody, so everybody has it.
I appreciate all the kind words, and the podcast, I think, it doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. It's a game changer. It will make you think deeper than you have about who you are and what you do. It's a really, really fun medium.
All right, so we have gotten questions. Folks, we may get some more. Feel free to bring them as they come. One of the questions was, what is the best way for a new loan officer to start prospecting? Any advice there, Anthony?
If I were brand new in your industry, here's what I would do. And I'm a person who I called from 8 o'clock till noon, went to lunch, called from 1 to 5 every day, so I'm a total grinder on prospecting. And picking up the phone and booking appointments with people. What I would do is if I could find the most successful person that I know at prospecting, I would ask if I could sit with them while they were doing that work so that I could listen to them. And what I would want is, again, language. I would want to figure out, how do I mimic what they're saying and how they're saying it? And I would want to listen in so I could understand, when the customer gives me these particular objections, when they say these things, what do the right answers tend to sound like? And one of the fastest ways to get better is to just model somebody who's already got some result that you want. Just model them. And that's the fastest thing I can tell you to do, is find somebody with really good language and sit with them and mimic them. The second thing I would tell you, sales of any kind is very much like swimming. You can watch somebody swim, and you can read a book about swimming, and then you can get in the water and immediately drown and die. Because the reading, the intellectualizing it, and the observing it does nothing to teach you how to swim. For sales, if you want to get better and you want to get better at prospecting, just sit down and make calls. Just make hundreds of calls. Let's say it takes you 3,000 calls to get really good at cold calling or appointment setting or getting a customer on the phone. You can do this 3,000 calls over the course of 10 years, or you could do it in the course of 13 weeks. And you can get better about it as fast of a pace as you want, as long as you dial. But you're going to get that immediate feedback. Is what I'm doing working? Do I need to change the pitch? Do I need to create greater value? Do I need to persist more? You only learn that through the doing.
You know, by the way, that's an interesting point you just made. And I'm going to pull up some of the slides from Jeremy. While I was interviewing, I was taking notes, and I was asking him, Jeremy, what's a perfect day for you? What do you do? And I was just writing while he was talking. And it's interesting, before this call, I was talking to a good friend and a leader in the industry, Brett with Velma, and we were talking about, Jeremy calls like 100 realtors a week. And he's like, loan officers aren't going to do that. I can't add that to my CRM because no one's going to do that. And I said, well, you know what? You're right. Everybody's not going to do that. Now, but by the way, folks that want to close, 30 plus loans a month and be among, the 1% of the 1%, they're going to do it. And then the folks that want to close 5 to 10 loans a month, and okay, they'll make, instead of 100 calls, 100 realtors a week, maybe they'll call 20. And the folks that want to be, top producer, number one in their company, not number one in the country, they'll do half of that. And so, guys, you pick how many loans you want to close. You pick how successful you want to be, and then you just call accordingly. If you want to be the best of the best, not just the best in a company, you're going to do what Jeremy does. If you want to be a top producer that closes 10 loans a month, you just call. So the new person who asked that question, I thought your advice was sage. Find a mentor, but you're really going to pick your income based off of your activity. And your activity will enhance your success, and your activity will absolutely dictate your success. So let's go to another question. I've got a sales manager, obviously, kind of paraphrasing, but he said, I wish all my loan officers use Mortgage Coach. The total cost analysis is the ultimate value, value presentation. But I've got a few that use it all the time with every family. So every family that they're quoting to gets a link. It drives an experience like this. And then I got a lot of loan officers that just either don't do it at all, or they only do it like when they feel like they need to do it. So Anthony, if you wouldn't mind speaking directly to sales managers out there, I mean, you know what we do because you've been on these calls long enough.
Oh, yeah.
But what advice do you have for that?
I might be your most frequent guest. Am I your most frequent guest?
You're in the top.
I'll probably make it in the top 10.
You're in the top 10 percentile, my friend.
I figured. Here's what I will tell you. So there are some things as a leader that you have to decide are non-negotiable. And when it comes to compelling differentiated value, that's not what we do, it's who we are. And when you say we're going to be different and be comes before do, I think that you have to exercise managerial will and say, in every client interaction we use Mortgage Coach because it allows us to create compelling differentiated value. That allows us to serve our client better. That allows us to win more business. That allows us to serve even more clients better than we're serving them now. This is managerial will. Some things need to be done just because they're the right thing to do. I don't need to have a democratic vote. I don't need to build consensus around it. I don't need to have a lot of conversations. We do it because it's right. There are some things we do just because they're right, even though we don't think they're always necessary, even though we don't always like it, even though we don't always want to. We exercise managerial will and say, we're a disciplined, compelling, differentiated sales organization. We're doing this. And that would be my best advice to you. I would make it a mandate. If I have a tool that unlevels the playing field and tilts it in my direction and creates preference for me, I'm using that tool. And I would make my team use it too.
So for everybody that's a branch manager, we obviously believe that's the case. For everyone that's the head of production, you can do it. And for everybody that's on this call and you have a team, you have a production assistant, you could just tell your production assistant, this is a new team requirement. Let's face it, you all have America's best mortgage app. I mean, USA Today did their research, and they recognized the Mortgage Coach app as the #1 app for mortgage. You're getting into debt. Make sure that you're doing it in the most intelligent way possible. Make sure you're doing it with a digital experience. Obviously, if you're meeting with someone that, mobile might not be their way, hey, you can print it out, but make sure you do it. Also, reminder to everybody, every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock, we're teaching you how to use your mobile device strategically. So every single one is live. I'm on it often because I do believe the mobile app is one of the most powerful ways for mortgage professionals to differentiate. I absolutely believe it's the most powerful, call it challenger sales tool. If you want to teach, if you want to help people go to the next level, teaching them how to do it with a mobile device is super powerful. So Anthony, we're in the last couple minutes. Any kind of final words on your part before we go into wrap-up mode?
Well, I want to just say thanks for everyone for being here and letting me share this information with you. I really appreciate it. If there's anything I can do to help you, reach out to me. The best place to find me is thesalesblog.com. And my parting thoughts for you are really just focus on the be and then focus on the do. And if you are what you need to be a trusted advisor, everything gets easier.
I love it. So folks, there's two ways to say thank you to Anthony for being here. I think, buying his book is great. Giving him a great review is even better. So he comes into a lot of communities. He's a highly sought after speaker. I can't emphasize the value of his book, but also say thank you by giving him a review. Also, something that is, free and incredibly valuable is his podcast. Like I said, I listened to the two of them this morning, the Challenger Sale. I mean, it was 29 minutes, and I just, I have the app. I had it downloaded while I was driving. I was listening to it. I had only planned on listening to 30 minutes of your calls in prep, but you suckered me in, and I watched, your Zero Time Selling with Andy Paul. So folks, hopefully we've delivered an hour of massive value. As we wrap up this call, answer the poll. Let us know how we delivered today. Did we exceed your expectations? Did you get some solid takeaways? Was it worth your time? If you are a guest, so you're on this call and you're a guest and you want to learn more about Mortgage Coach, click the last option. I'd love to get a demo about Mortgage Coach. And Anthony, you crushed it, brother. Thank you for spending an hour in our community, and I look forward to the next time we bring you back.
Thank you. I look forward to it too.
Hey, good luck with your book. And by the way, when is the second book coming out? Just real quick, when is that coming out?
Believe it or not, it's August 8th, so I'm 10 months away from my second book and 6 weeks away from a deadline.
We won't even talk about that. All right, brother. Take care. And by the way, folks, buy a case of these books and give them out to your realtors. You know, they're a great value to anyone who's in the business of being a trusted advisor. Take care, everybody.